Good morning. As everyone is joining, if you wouldn't mind to use the chat function and let us know who you are and where you're joining from. And if you are a teacher joining today and you have students in class with you, how many students are with you today? My name is Amber Ham. I am the training and outreach coordinator with Kentucky Spin. And we are so excited. Today's Transition Tuesday is navigating the transition from high school to college. I have an icebreaker question that you can start thinking of. You can use the chat box to give us some answers. But what are you looking forward to most this summer? We want to hear from everyone. What is the exciting thing that you're waiting on or looking forward to? Personally, as a mom, I know that I am waiting on not having to wake my children up for school. So I look forward to that every summer, and it always excites me that I get just a little time alone to myself in the mornings during their summer break. Right. So a little bit about Kentucky Spin or Kentucky Special Parent Involvement Network. We are funded by the U.S. Department of Education under IDEA since 1988, when Kentucky first received a PTI. Kentucky Spin Parent Center provides training, information, and support for all children and youth with all types of disabilities, birth through 26 years old and beyond. And it's important to note too that we don't require a diagnosis in order to assist someone. So we always like to let folks know that too. We'll never turn anyone away for assistance. We also help families and professionals as they support individuals in their lives with disabilities. At Kentucky Spin, it is important to know that we are not attorneys. We don't act as attorneys. We do not represent families, nor do we give legal advice. With that being said, we do empower families to advocate effectively for themselves and their children. And we do that by utilizing a peer-to-peer model of support that help families access needed information and resources. A quick disclosure about today's training. This is not a training of trainers event. Kentucky Spin does not authorize other agencies, organizations, or individuals to train this material. Third-party recording or streaming is strictly prohibited, and this presentation is for educational use only. With that being said, all rights for use are reserved by Kentucky Spin Incorporated.
And I'm Kacy Midkiff, and I am the coordinator for the Comprehensive Transition Program at BCTC. And my coworker, colleague, Jeanine Mosher is here too. And I'll give her a moment to introduce herself, and then we'll begin.
I am a moderate to severe disabilities teacher with Fayette County Public Schools. I work at a program called Opportunity Middle College through Fayette County Schools. And we pretty much are an introductory to the CTP program. We kind of vet out students who have skill sets that we feel like will be successful, and we kind of introduce them at a more, I guess, supported and slower pace than what they typically would with a CTP program, as that's a little more intensive. So we kind of build up the students' skill sets up to where they need to be in order to continue on with the CTP program. I've been in the field of special education for over 16 years now, and love working with this population. Love transition in particular. And so This has been a really great experience. Kacy and I work together very closely, supporting each other, kind of figuring, flying the plane as we go. But I feel like we have a real strong program that has real results. And as most of you may know, that's hard to come by. And unfortunately, in this day and age. So I thank you for asking us to come and share.
So about 4 years ago, this program began, and before I did this program, I was a music teacher. So my experience is a little different. I didn't have all the background, but I did have a willingness to do it. But it has not been easy, but it has been rewarding. So what our program is, we help transition students. We have high school juniors all the way up to 26, 27-year-olds coming and taking classes. The program length is 4 semesters. We have had a few students case by case extend to 6 semesters, which has been really rewarding. And the end goal, we're hoping students get some skills to have competitive integrated employment. Now, that in the state of Kentucky, we have some options, but not a lot that truly do that. So we've been trying to target skills that could help students to succeed. So mainly on the college side, the program is 1 to 2 days a week, around 5 to 7 hours of work. When students first come, we have them go with a mentor or myself, and they go to class. We assist with homework. As time goes on, the goal is to fade that support, have students go independently, which sounds scary and hard at first, but students have really thrived with it. And surprise themselves even how, their social skills have developed, and it's been amazing. So my role is, I'll just do this briefly because we have more important stuff, but I meet with the instructors. I try to formulate a plan. Ms. Mosher also meets with instructors. We just let them know about our program. I supervise the mentors and mentees, try to coach them. I schedule for the students, and I'm the college advocate for them, and I help with onboarding, admissions, FAFSA. I don't really do the FAFSA with students, but I try to help guide them to who can do those type things on campus. The peer mentor, this is similar to a para in schools, but it's not as intensive. Paras have a lot of experience, a lot of training. Our student workers do have some training, but they're peers. So that has been a really good development because students in our special education population, they work with adults mostly all the time. OT, speech, ABA, any of those things. Resource teachers, they work with adults a lot. So sometimes their peer-to-peer social skills are a little bit of a deficit. So the peer mentor kind of helps with that. And they do get paid through the college through our grant, which is a good thing. But I try to train them to wait for the student to ask for help. We want them to have the opportunity to initiate. And that's been really awesome. So for the student, they attend class, have a goal to be employed, they learn to self-advocate, and they attend homework sessions. The family, I feel like they start to go into a different role. Parents have been the primary advocate for the students up to the point of coming to the program. And at this point, it's sort of a pivot. We want parents to go into more of a co-pilot, help the students start to advocate, have the student email someone, even if you're writing the email together. So that is a little bit of a change for some families as well, but it is a worthy process. And the students start to get confidence and feel empowered in that process.
Kacy, it's
Yes.
Amber. I just
Yes.
wanted to let you know you are not currently in presentation mode.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. If you want to hit slideshow and then start
Yes.
from current slide.
Oh, that way. Can you see it better now?
Perfect. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Sorry.
much.
No, I appreciate that. Do you want to say anything about family support? I'm going to mute and
All right. I will say that it is a significant change for families. Families tend to be highly supported through the public education system. And in a lot of ways, I will admit this, have probably handicapped them because we do so much for them. And then when they get turned over to Kacy or whomever at the adult level, those rules no longer apply. IDEA and ADA look significantly different and far more different than I realized before coming to this program. So it's really important. I think it would behoove us as educators to look more at how we transition families and maybe even look at the high school level handing more of those responsibilities off, although it can be crippling for a student. You know, it is a juggling act. How can families empower their students yet still do what they need to do to make a living, to, you know, so there's a lot of things to navigate there. But if you recognize where you're going and what your goals are, and if we can do a better job at what that transition looks like, and having programs like this that have proven outcomes, it's going to help to kind of bridge that gap some, because it's something tangible instead of just saying, well, we hope one day your student can work with animals. They love animals. And yeah, that's great, but how are we doing that? And what exactly does that look like? Because handing it off at the adult level, there's a big gap there. The service providers on the other side don't fully understand who they're getting and how to best support them. And so a lot of times those safety nets just fall away and the student ends up at home. And that's something we're trying really hard to mitigate. And when I first took this job, I'll be honest, I wasn't sure that there was any teeth to it. You know, I hoped there was, but it seemed a little lofty. And yet being here now and through my second year of doing this with Kacy, there's some real tangible outcomes for these students, whether they get their certificate or continue on with CTP or not. I almost feel like we are failing our high school students if we don't give them the opportunity to come here and at least try, because there's a lot of skill sets that they will develop and learn here that are, you know, relatable wherever they go, whether it's in an employment setting, a social setting. There's a lot that happens here all day, every day, that you just can't recreate those number of trials in a 2-hour employment training session. You know, they're here all day and they have to navigate these systems, and they're forced to interact and build a work ethic that is really something exceptional. And I think families being on board is key, because if they can't really understand and appreciate what's happening here, then, you know, there's probably 3 main spokes to this wheel, and one of them is family. And if you don't have all 3, then chances are that student's not going to make it. So it's really important that we facilitate that information well to the parents and the expectations, and that's well received. Otherwise, our students are really at risk for not succeeding. I hope that makes sense.
So these are just a few of the classes that we take here. So I've been really lucky to have Jeanine come here because she's taught me so much, and we've taken several art classes together. And what we have really learned through the art class is distress tolerance for students. It's the art class is 3 hours. Some of the professors are a little I wouldn't say strict, but they have their own standards for the class. Like you have to stay in your space. We take limited breaks. So it's been really an interesting experience. But what we've learned in the art classes is just to see how the students rise to the occasion. It's been really a great first class to take at the college. And then we go into some technical computer courses. We've taken students through Excel. I didn't think I could learn Excel. And then we have both of us, right? And the Microsoft Suite and some technology classes. We do an interpersonal communication class. How do we talk to each other? What's a relationship cycle? And when they come here after high school, we do freshman year experience. Some students have taken special interest classes like business, library, research skills and different things. So those are some of the classes we've taken. And so sometimes students want to be in the CTP program, and possibly they might test out of it. They might be, just needing a little extra support. So some of these options, they could go to student accessibility support. The biggest support that they give here or accommodations, we have two. One is extended time, and the other is some assistive technology. But that is really it. So the CTP program, we try not to always use this, but we can audit classes. And if they audit, they don't get the credit for it. It counts toward the credential for CTP, but they get access to the class. That takes away that stress of I have to make an A for my GPA, and they can still use financial aid. Now, I try not to just put people straight in that path. I want them to get something meaningful. So some of these supports help. Now, in high school, when you have a student and they need support, if they're starting to fail, the teacher is going to step in right away and say, hey, we're going to get you back on track. This is what we're going to do, and so on and so forth. Here at the college, although I do play that role and I do help, the students have to request from the professors and have that experience. And the accommodations are usually extended time. So we've had to learn how to push through sometimes some discomfort. Peer tutoring has been so influential. Sometimes having a peer there, having that accountability partner has helped. We have worked some with PREETs and Voc Rehab, and then BCTC has another sister program called Trio, and this is for students who maybe they had an IEP, but it was just for one area and they need some extra support, or they're a first year generation student. So that might be more appropriate than a CTP program. And so I'm going to check the chat to make sure you all are not. Oh, perfect. Thank you for putting those in there, Kelly. So we have an admissions process, and it's a really great opportunity to work with the family and the students to get them through the process, but it is a little different. So I always like to highlight that just a little bit. I call it steps to enrollment. I think it says 10, but I think there's only 8. So if it says that typo, I apologize. So here's the next part. So usually I have students come to the campus and we take a tour, let them see the campus for themselves. A lot of times, families and teachers, they're concerned about the campus size and safety. Luckily, we spend most of the time in one building. It's called the classroom building, and it's 3 floors, and every floor is just about the same. So it's really good for our students who love that routineness of things. It helps them know the bathroom's always in the same spot on every floor. Then we do the application. It is free, which most colleges aren't. So I'm thankful for that. the next step is the FAFSA. So with the FAFSA, for our program, there's this is just for the adult students. So the ones who either stayed till 22 and then come to our program or come right after high school. The dual credit students do not have to do FAFSA, but this is about your tax information. And I don't think I've had but one student self-pay. Almost every student has come here through Pell Grants. So that is just a great benefit, and kudos to our financial aid department. It has been difficult because they have to manually put it in. So I'm very grateful for them and their work. The dual credit, thankfully, through partnership with Fayette County, they do have some of the KIA scholarships, dual credit scholarship, or Work Ready. And then Fayette County has been very gracious to help cover the remainder of the bill. So that's just sort of like the dual credit part. And then we get transcripts. I will tell you a hint. If you go to your high school and ask for the transcript, it will be $2 to $5. If you do it online, it will be probably around 10. So I found that out. And if you email the registrars and you let them know, sometimes it's free. So don't feel funny about asking, because sometimes if you ask, you can get it for free. And you can then digitally send it to colleges, not just BCTC. You could do this with any. And so this next part, I'm going to ask you to fill in too on this accommodations part, Jeanine. The accommodations, it's different in college. It is student-led. Students have to initiate. You do not have to self-disclose. But to be in this program, you do, but only because we want you to get the accommodations you might need. So we go and meet. But one interesting thing we came into this year, we had to fill out forms with the students, both of us, that financial aid and student accessibility could talk to us about the students, because some of them are adult aged. So that's been an interesting experience. So I thought I'd ask you to share on yours too, Jeanine.
Yes, so several of my students are parents do not have guardianship, so they are their own guardians. And I kind of walk a a delicate line, because my students are still in high school and they are still under IDEA for Fayette County Public Schools. But when they come here to BCTC, them, along with any other student, are now treated as emancipated students. So unless a parent has guardianship and puts that paperwork in through the Office of Accessibilities, they will only interact and talk with the students, which some of my students have stronger communication skills than others. And so we have worked closely with BCTC and with each individual professor, because no one by law, and actually by law shouldn't be speaking with me, but we do find ways to get what we need done for the student, and they find ways to navigate that process. But it has been a big gap that we have to look at preparing our students for better, because they are going to have to do that. The nice thing about the OMC Opportunity Middle College program we have is that we hold their hand through the process, not just my students, but any student that might have a 504 or IEP that is in our program. We are an all-inclusive. We don't discriminate based on your ability. So as long as a special needs a student who has special needs identifies they want to come here, we will provide them the level of support they need. Now, we do have to work within the parameters of ADA. And so it's been really good in that it has built a tolerance in this my population of students for work, for expectations, for professionalism that would not typically be addressed to this degree in a public school setting. So our students are navigating that. They have to meet with the accessibilities office at the beginning of each school year. They present their accommodations and from their IEP to the office. And then the office takes it and then they review it. They put in place what the college is willing to offer us. They meet again with the student to go over what accommodations they are willing to offer. The student then has to say, okay, or they have to be able to advocate for themselves, which is great because they don't get practice in that. A lot of them don't, at least not consistent practice. So we kind of walk them through that process. Then they have to request that their accommodations that are agreed upon get sent to their professors that they are in class with that semester. And they have to do that each semester. So it's a process that they have to be prepared to go through, that no matter who comes along. So if you get a new manager, if you get a new supervisor, if you change jobs, you would again have to go through that process again of what's it look like to advocate for myself and my needs. Can I self-identify what my deficits are and what I need support-wise to be successful? I don't modify work at all. I can't say that. I can't modify what the professor asks our students to complete. However, there are so many tools out there now that allow for our students to be successful. So I always make sure I speak with the professor first about this is what I'm doing, especially with reading assignments. A lot of our students are functional readers, but not grade level readers or even close to grade level readers, or their comprehension doesn't equate to the level that they're able to read at. So they can read a lot of things, but they don't know what it means. So we use some AI programs that will differentiate the material down so it's at a level they can understand. However, it's the same content and our students are able to navigate really well that way. Now, we're very careful about the classes we select and put them in, and we're very clear with the professors about any changes or ways that we're looking to address the material so they can be successful. And they're doing it and they're doing it well. They need a lot of help with the writing. Writing is, as we know, a big deficit for a lot of our students. So they just learn, I will scribe for them. They learn to use voice to text, applications on different devices. Some of them have big communication deficits. And that's the one thing I would really push. If you have a student who communication skills are difficult to understand, don't wait till they are exiting. There's not a lot of tolerance for that. There's not a lot of patience for that. And if they don't have a way to communicate clearly, people kind of wash their hands of it, and it's not right. But at the same time, we should be putting in place what they need to be successful. And so I guess that's about all I have to say about that.
So just a side note, Jeanine encouraged me with my own son who his speech is delayed. All three of my children have speech delay, but he's the only one that we were able to get an AAC, an augmented communication device, and it brought upon so much more communication for him. So seeing was believing for me, and we have tried to help some of our other students have more ways to communicate, even if they are, they choose more nonverbal or different, speech patterns. We still try to give them an opportunity. It's been awesome. So I would highly encourage it. A lot of times Medicaid will pay for those AAC devices. Yes, it is a learning curve, but it is amazing to see their eyes light up when they're able to communicate and people, access the world. And I've just been so grateful for that, for her telling me that. So I tried it with my own students, my own kids. Then we schedule classes. I'm very picky about who I put students with. Um, sometimes you get a great relationship going with the professor and then they leave or they're adjunct. So we do have a lot of opportunity to um, teach people about students in our population. It's a lot of education. It's a lot of give and take. And sometimes it can make you feel a little angry. Um, because you're like, why don't you just get it? But then I remember there were times in my life I didn't get it, right? And someone was kind to me and said, why don't you look at it this way? So I always try to remind myself that this is an exposure program for everyone, even the students and even people who have never experienced this. And sometimes college professors, they don't get training in how to do the accommodations. Even if they get one, it's hard for them to understand a sequence of it. But once they see really quality work and students really trying and motivated, they always usually come around. So the best thing to do is know what are times that you cannot go to class. If you have a standing occupational therapy or speech therapy every week at 9, don't book it for that. So that's one thing we work with the families. I do on what are the times that are open. And sometimes it takes a few weeks to get things scheduled right. To prep for your semester, you want to get you'll get books. A lot of the colleges now are doing free books through OpenStax. I prefer that. But it's out there for anyone. You don't even have to be enrolled in a class to look through OpenStax. Then students learn the college learning system. We use Blackboard. That is a big one. In high school, they give you a portion every single day. In college, you get the whole thing at the beginning. So even students not in my program, I try to prep them for that. When you open Blackboard, it's all going to be there and you might feel overwhelmed. That's totally normal. The first 8 weeks of college, students start out so excited, 2 or 3 weeks in. Then by week 8, they all get this look. I can't do this. And they start to panic. I'll even stop students in the hallway and go, hey, it's going to be all right. Push through, push past midterm. You'll feel better. Yes. And I'm going to mute and Jeanine's going to give some input too.
Listen, it is new and it is scary. And I have found we have identified some outstanding students in Fayette County Public Schools and should have been able to come here and be successful. And a lot of these students end up dropping out in the first week. I mean, we lost a good percentage last year at the start of the year, and they were like just prime candidates for this program because they're afraid. They get overwhelmed. And instead of us helping them to push through and give them the experience of what it's like to see something through that's hard, we default to, well, pull them out. They're so overwhelmed. They're so stressed. Life's going to be like that for them. And if we want them to be out and in the world and doing hard things, we have to give them opportunity to know what it looks like, sounds like, and feels like to work through those things. And so I would encourage any parent, like, if you're going to start a program like this and decide that it's not for your student, make them see a semester through, because there are so many good lessons in that, even if they don't come back the following semester, which I think once they get one under the belt, there's a confidence that grows. But we have to give them opportunity to succeed and persevere through the hard stuff. Otherwise, we're giving them a false ideal of what the world is going to be like for them.
That's been one of the best parts of working with Jeanine, because I was taking things. I was not giving students the dignity of risk. I was not giving them the opportunity to make a mistake. I was doing too much for them, like a lot of us do. And I kind of stepped back. I took her advice, and it has just blown me away about how far students have come. I was even able to hire one of our graduates to come back and be a peer mentor. Has it been perfect? Absolutely not. It has had some pitfalls and some things go wrong, but it has been so motivating to other students to see someone just like them to get a job and get to interact with people. And, that's been so wonderful. So we've talked about the difference for the rights and responsibilities, high school and college. Um, the parents, the records that we talked about that need to sign over, that you're allowed to call and ask. That's really important because under FERPA in college, students are the only ones with access. Even when you come to advising, the advisor will have to ask, is it okay if your parents stay? So you can have guardianship filed with the college. There are limits to it, but it's been better than I expected. This has been a big one. College is less structured. Sometimes I don't parents. This has been hard. We'll show up to class, myself and the student, and the class is canceled, and I don't have any way of knowing because I'm not in their class shell. Up until this year, I didn't even know that was possible. This very semester, I mean, I've been doing this 4 years, and I didn't know they could add me on as a teaching assistant, right? So I could get those announcements. We would just show up, and class would be canceled. That happens in life, and it's been really good to have that unpredictability. Gives us something to talk about. Disappointment. Well, that is very disappointing. Yeah, that bothers me. Weather, snow has been hard. And so that's a change. High school and public school is very much more structured, predictable. You see the same teachers daily, and in college you might not. You might see a teacher once a week in a hybrid class. You might see them twice a week in a hybrid class. You might not see them at all in an online class. Now, there are a few online classes that we take. We don't take as many online, but because I prefer them coming in the classroom. We have taken a really excellent culinary class that's been online. But we've never met the teacher. I don't think I've ever talked to her in person once. So that's a difference. Oh,
And the benefit of, the benefit of the online class as well is it just teaches them another way. Like they have to be more structured in their time management. They have to, so I think I don't steer away from the virtual classes, even though it doesn't necessarily give them the social aspects that they can benefit so greatly from, but it also introduces just another layer of things. So they have to learn to be a little more self-disciplined. They have to learn to be able to ask good questions because there's a lot more I find an online class leaving me with more questions sometimes than answers. Well, what did they mean by, and I can't ask right away. So now they're developing a skill set of having to reach out to professors and inquire about things and make sure they're clear about things. So don't ever steer your student away from an online class because you think it's not going to give them a college experience, because it is. And college in this day and age is, as much online as in person. And there's flexibility that it can offer your student. If they're in an employment setting, but they really need that class, then maybe they have to take it virtually, but don't steer away from those. There's benefits to taking both in-person and online classes for our students.
let's see. We've talked about this quite a bit, but we don't modify the content. I don't modify a lot of it. I will say I skip a lot of the reading, and I look up the PowerPoints or use Diffit or Chat GPT even to get things down, possibly the level. I've also used Chat GPT to give me a summary of a paper, just to give a student an opportunity to look at an actual model or to edit and come in and bring in their own. And that's been really great. But other than that, we do not modify it. That at first is different. I think we've talked on this a lot, so I'll probably move quickly off this one. But it's been really rewarding. And students, they rise to it. It's remarkable. I will say, this is just my lived experience with this. I have seen that parents and families, especially the first semester, unless they're in the dual credit, if they're in dual credit, I don't see this. But if they're just traditional age, they're experiencing a lot of grief and stress during transition. They have had extended support from preschool or even 2 or 3 years old all the way to 22, and then it is all gone. Parents are now responsible for direct support professionals, supported employment, scheduling their own therapies if they choose to continue with that. They're still working, they have other children, and now they are in charge of all of it again. And it's almost, I recognize it because I just went through getting my children in services. And before that, it was very, very hard. And so they're kind of experiencing that again. And so at first it was overwhelming to me. I didn't know exactly what they were going through and I didn't know what to do. So I worked with a mentor and she helped me help the parents. She said, everyone wants to know their role and their responsibility. So I set up some checklists. This is your responsibility. This is my responsibility. This is students' responsibility. And that's really helped. But it's hard for parents. So the more programs we can have like this, I really think the better. Less aggressive students from just frustration, less loneliness, depression, anxiety, because they're at least having some social time. And even with the career coaches, students struggle to find employment. And so this can give them that opportunity to have some of that unstructured, unpredictableness of life and learn how to handle it. It's kind of a dance for families. So it's gotten better for me. I've been able to handle it better with families and kind of guide them and just tell them, you're experiencing what everyone experiences and you're not alone. We're going to help you, but it's going to take a little time to ride the wave. Would you like to say something too for that part? Yes.
I would just encourage you, if you are a parent of a student in high school, at least, it's kind of when you have your ARCs and you're looking at things, look at fading supports, look at, taking over some of those roles, a role, whatever, because that has been, I think, the biggest obstacle for our students being successful is that it's just too much all at once. And so any program or any planning we put in place, no matter how hard we work, if we don't prepare the parent or family to take over, then the wheels fall off because they don't even know where to begin. There's too many moving parts. They don't understand how much the schools or a teacher or a service provider might take on and do on behalf of a student, because we all want what's best for them. But then, we don't do a really great job of preparing the families. We'll talk about it and we'll talk about it at every ARC. This is the transition plan. This is what, these are the things we're going to be putting in place. But then we never there's not a bridge between school and home. It's just all of a sudden, here you are, you're at the river and maybe there's a ferry, maybe there's not. Get across to the other side. And it's debilitating for a lot of our families, and that's a real heartbreak.
So at first one of the other teachers I worked with said that Kacy kind of breaks the parents in. And I was like, I don't know if that's the right term, but I knew what she meant. They're scared at first and they don't trust me. And a lot of times the mama bear comes out. I get a lot of we got to get this done, the stress and kind of feels very assertive, right? And I understand where that's coming from. And over time, we built some trust with them, and I see them kind of relax and know that, sometimes you feel like you're fighting the school district. You feel like you're fighting the teacher. You feel like, why aren't you giving my student this? Or, it's hard. So when they come here, I try to tell them, I'm on your team. We're fighting together. It's not even really a fight. We're going to navigate this together, right? And that's a different partnership. It's been very rewarding though. So, at first I've seen parents kind of overstep a little bit, and I don't mean that negatively. I just mean they're used to that role, and it's hard to kind of get your student to do it at first, and that just takes a little time. And I do see the students rise to it. That's been amazing. And instead of mom texting me, it's the student. One family, they said, can we be on a group chat? That way I can encourage them to do it independently, but I can also see it. Okay, yeah, let's try it. And it's actually been really good. And the student now comes and asks their questions. It's not just from the parents' role. So I am a little different. I have a Google Voice and I let them text me, but they are college age. I don't text with dual credit students or anything like that. But it is a monitored account. I let everyone know this is monitored. BCTC has access. This isn't just a private thing. But that's been good for the students to be able to advocate sometimes that way. So that comes with time. Yes. Yes, of course. I'm going to mute.
I will say it's a very delicate line that Kacy walks, and OMC walks as well. There's a lot of people in this world that look at our population and think, why are they here? They don't belong here. They're just waiting for the I told you so moment. And so we really have to be careful on who we select and how we navigate this and the expectations that we set. It's a very deliberate program. It's not just hey, let's try this. We put as many controls in place as we can to mitigate any problems, because it is a house of cards sometimes. You know that there are people out there that want to see you succeed, and there are people out there that just don't believe. And it's not to be mean, they just don't believe yet. And so we're slowly turning hearts and minds, but we have to walk a very fine line, and Kacy does a great job because she's in that world. I can at least default back to, well, they're in high school still, so I have to be able, she doesn't have that safety net. So she does a really good job about trying to be open and honest with parents. And sometimes that's hard to hear, especially coming from a world that is so I think, tries to manage outcomes more than allows a student to learn through a process. We oftentimes will keep our students from experiencing that because we know it'll be hard for them, and they can be successful as long as all of these things are in place. But Kacy has to kind of strip those things away because they aren't in the ADA world, and now they have to be successful without them. So there's going to be some hard days, but she manages them really well.
Well, thank you. That was very kind. And I know we're running over a little bit, and I apologize. I think we're coming to a close. Yep, that was the last one. So, just wrapping up, what's been really cool has been seeing students reach for some success and attain it. We've worked really hard and looked through all the certificates, and we have found 2 true certificates that students can take. It's not just a CTP. It's a true data entry or child care worker, and they can get that, and it's real. And that has been so rewarding for students to have a real credential alongside a certificate alongside CTP credential. Because people could just say, well, that's a transition, that who cares? No, this is real. They're doing the data entry like anyone else. So and Thank you all so much for having us. And thank you, Jeanine, for helping me. She is a wealth of knowledge, and I just love working with her. And I know she'd add so much to this. So, Kelly, again, thank you for inviting me. You all helped me in the fall when we were going through crisis, and I did not know what to do. And I'd been in education for years. And I called you all and I met with your parent advocate trainer, and it helped me. So when you asked me to come do this, I was like, absolutely, I would love to, because I wanted to give back because you all helped me so much. And I was able to go in there and rock that ARC meeting. And I appreciate it so much. So thank you again.
We want to just say thank you so much to Kacy and Jeanine. What a wealth of knowledge you both have. And we appreciate you coming today and speaking and spotlighting from that youth's perspective, as well as coming from a parent assisting a youth. And we just appreciate that so much.